It's the attempt to force feed your story, Tom Bombadil, because you're taking a jab at Peter Jackson's trilogy. Essentially, that's the reason they've done it. It's not for the fans. If they were doing anything for the fans, they would be listening to the fans and hear that fans are upset. There's been a whole bunch of articles defending the Rings of Power, and then every episode, you got people like us who are making videos. Articles are coming out, people offensive and defensive, right?
Yeah. It's the same song and dance as last time.
Right, exactly. So the question is, with the episode...
less viewers.
With a lot less viewers.
A lot less viewers on these episodes.
Oh, a lot less than last season?
Mm-hmm. It was I believe the numbers are showing like a 60% drop off after the first 3 episodes. Episode 4.
So with all this defense of the show, the few people that are watching and enjoying it, the question is, with the introduction of Tom Bombadil, the big fan favorite.
Yeah.
Is this Tom Bombadil right? All right. This article here seems to think that it's built around one crucial thing. All right.
Yes.
So the Rings of Power does justice to Tom Bombadil by remembering one crucial thing. Now, Wyatt, I let you pre-read this. Do you want to read any of this, or do you want me to go straight to what
no. So they kind of just carry on pretty lamely, telling you who he is, telling you what he says, blah 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 blah, until they get to these paragraphs right here. So let me read this for you real quick. It says, it's all enough to feel very familiar for fans of Tolkien's work, regarding some of the things that Bombadil said earlier, while crucially adapting the one thing essential to the character: how little we really know about him. While it may have been tempting to flesh him out a bit more in the ambitious world-building show, Payne and McKay thankfully resist the urge. Instead, he says he is but a wanderer, not a warrior. As he assures the stranger, the only way he knows how to define himself is by his name. It's a different tact than the expansions taken with Galadriel, Elrond, and even Sauron, but it's what suits the character.
Okay.
So if you read the entirety of the article, you will find and understand that this is all fluff and nothingness. It brings you no insight to the writing. It brings you no insight to the character. Insight to the
what's
world.
The one thing? I'm a little confused.
The one crucial thing is how little people know about him.
About Tom Bombadil.
Well, I mean,
so they crafted the character and they got him right because they remembered one thing.
There's nothing on him.
We don't know a lot about it. So what they did is they made him ominous and made him like a great mentor for the Gandalf character.
Except that there's a lot about Tom. His whole character, who exactly he is in the book, and they didn't even get that right, in my opinion. He walks around and gives advice and says things with flowery language and sometimes sings a little bit, whistles and hums.
Right.
But he feels more like a serious Tom Bombadil, a little bit more like a Hagridy character.
He is very Hagridy. We talked about that on our episode review for episode 4. And I don't know. As long as they don't give him some lines for other characters, like you mentioned, he kind of is a wanderer. If he calls himself Mithrandir, I'm going to be like, what?
Mithrandir? Which is Gandalf's name?
Yeah.
Well, see, he's not gonna claim to be like a wizard or anything. The issue I'm having with his character to this point is he's already saying too much. He's already saying, you have to fight against this. You have to be the power to stop the evil in the land, and I can teach you how to use magic. Right. Does not seem like Tom at all. Tom is more disinterested than this. They
Right.
want to claim that he's just like Tom in the books, that he's disinterested, that he loves doing what he's doing. But this Tom is a little bit too serious. He's a little bit too invested in what is going on around him. Old Tom seemed a little bit of oblivious.
Yes. And also what this show does the most and gets off on doing a bit is use these have these characters say phrases and words and sentences that sound like they're smart, but ultimately mean nothing.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like a bunch of, for example, like they really hyper focus on this term, like him saying he's eldest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or he's he's a wanderer, not a warrior. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's just these little phrases that they latch onto, and they do it with almost every character. But it's especially with Tom, they're going to rely on this so much. These phrases that he says that ultimately describes nothing, means nothing, and doesn't help the book or the show one direction or the other. It's just kind of planted in there to be a fake Tolkienism, which holds no water.
The show is full of fake Tolkienisms. The one that's coming to mind right now is Disa says, rumors are like songbirds. They sound like a full meal from afar until you get close and realize there's nothing but bones.
What?
I mean, I don't know how a songbird sounds filling. Sounds like a song, right? How music sounds filling. But it's that's what they do. They're empty, fake,
right,
Tolkienisms that have no bearing on anything.
Yeah. And so when it comes to them crafting who Tom Bombadil is, they're like, okay, we don't want to. I guess with this article's defending, we haven't seen the full season yet, so they might elaborate more. And the point that they're making goes out the window. You know what I mean? But as of right now, if they are saying, hey, we're not going to try to tell a bunch of his backstory because we don't want to know it, right? The book doesn't go into that. We don't going to go into that. If that's what they're saying, well, then they already are. But then they're not spending time on what the book does quantify Bombadil as.
And I would honestly, I think, be a little bit more okay with Bombadil's character, even though he doesn't fit into this story. I think I'd be a little bit more okay with him if he was more expressive, if he was more happy, if he was grinning all the time, almost to the point of being unnerving, to where you're not really sure why. What?
More jolly?
More jolly.
I think he felt very jolly. Why do you say
felt happy? More? I want more. I want it to feel like unearthly, like not real. Almost his character. It's almost like a tongue-in-cheek kind of fun humor, where like
he's the Deadpool of Middle Earth.
No. Imagine if you took a character like the Joker and you dialed him down and made him kind of like a character who kind of like, he walks around and he says Joker-like things, and he sometimes laughs a little bit behind his hand and, kind of winks at the camera because we know who he is and he knows who he is. That's kind of what Bombadil feels like to me. He's a toned down version of a character that should be a little bit more unearthly.
And I honestly don't have like his presence on screen. I don't have like a better version to compare it to.
Yeah.
I don't have like nothing stood out in his performance that was like, this is all wrong. You know what I mean? I understand what you're saying. In the books, he's described as a little more happy. If you want to tamper that a little bit, whatever.
But nothing in this version stood out as being like, wow, this is really impressive.
No, it definitely didn't. But also it wasn't super egregious outside of like the Tolkienisms I've already described that mean nothing. But also, the biggest issue I have with Tom Bombadil in Rings of Power is just that. It's the attempt to force feed your story, Tom Bombadil, because you're taking a jab at Peter Jackson's trilogy, essentially. That's the reason they've done it. It's not for the fans. If they were doing anything for the fans, they would be listening to the fans and hear that fans are upset.
Yeah.
So it wasn't for the fans. It was literally to say, hey, we're going to do the first Tom Bombadil.
That's what they want to do. We want to be the first. We're going to
Yes.
have Bombadil. We're going to have Glorfindel.
And
we're going to have all these things.
And what they're doing is they're also retconning Gandalf in the process. I know they've already have, but they're doing it further by saying like, hey, just because the books haven't, there was no mention of Gandalf being taught by Tom Bombadil the ways of wizardry. You know what I mean? So we're just gonna assume they're like, hey, it happened off screen and it happened on ours. You know what I mean? Or it happened in between the pages. And so that's what the problem I have is force feeding your story, Tom Bombadil, and you don't care about what the fans want. You're just trying to claim names and also changing Gandalf's backstory to say Tom Bombadil was essentially his mentor, right?
Well, I mean, we predicted this before they even showed Tom. We said Tom's just going to be a name for the show. It's going to be, oh, we have Tom Bombadil. It's Tom Bombadil, and that's what they're doing with the show and with this article. It's we want to put the words Tom Bombadil because people are going to be excited for that. So Tom Bombadil, it's almost like just saying it for the name, and it's like who cares?
Name recognition
is, or anything like that. It's just the name is what we want for the show.
And they'll give him some lines. It rubs me the wrong way, man.
Well, they'll give him some nonsense lines, as we've established.
Right, and here's the thing: nonsense is fine, but he needs to be then speaking entirely in nonsense. You can't have him speak in nonsense, and then when Gandalf says, "Am I the one to stop all this?" he says, "Yes." He says, "Yes, you are." In clear language, he says, "Yes, you are. You have to stop both of these evils."
I can't. I'm a wanderer. But you could be the warrior who takes care of this problem.
Yeah, but bark and trees and grass and ground and rivers and pebbles. And if he's going to talk like that some of the time, he needs to talk like that all of the time. If he's going to talk in clear language, then be a little bit more skillful with your writing.
Yeah. It's not really the presence on screen I have an issue with. And so when they say they're defending it because they remembered this one essential thing, I don't think that's the one essential thing, right? To making a Tom Bombadil. The one essential thing is, first off, how does he act in the book? Does putting him in your story achieve anything of value for the story?
Yeah.
And most of the time that answer is going to be no, because Peter Jackson came up with the answer, no. And if you listen to what he has to say, it was the right answer.
Yeah. Well, I think this article also has it right in the ideas of how they're writing these characters. Go back up. You were on the right spot. Because in that paragraph, it said it's a different tact than the expansions taken with the other characters, right?
Right.
But it's what suits the character. The issue here is the expansions on the characters so far have been pretty bad.
No,
they haven't
worse.
Felt expansions.
They're not pretty bad. They're truly annoying and horrible.
Yeah, pretty horrific.
Horrific, yes.
I mean, there's I don't know. I almost prefer the characters that aren't in the lore to the characters that are. I would rather watch what's his name? Arendir run around, but he's running around with Isildur.
Right.
You know,
honestly,
I'd rather watch him by himself than spit kind of on the legacy of these characters. I kind of like Disa sometimes.
Sometimes Disa's tolerable.
Dude, sometimes she delivers some really solid dialogue.
Like when, she's talking about bird eating.
Not that part. When she's talking to the king and it feels like a real conversation between human beings.
Yeah. Because the dude who's playing the king is a real
He's good.
actor.
He's good.
He's a real actor.
I would definitely say out of the dwarfs, they have given her more screen time of any of them, but she has a better screen time than
Yeah.
yeah.
And that for some reason the writing is better between the dwarven characters. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just the way that they write them is kind of plain. Aside from Disa-isms, they write their dialogue pretty regular, as if they're humans interacting with each other and not characters.
Yeah, the elves it's horrible.
All the elves
it's
are
all cringy.
They're all characters.
And most of them are busted.
Yeah. Busted.
Most of the elves look like frumpy vegans.
And I mean, that last elf in the last episode with the fade, he got faded. Classic horror movie trope. Black elf gets taken out first.
Right. Just
Song.
Everyone was dogging on Galadriel's character again. He's like, the first thing he says is, "Don't let go," because he looked up and saw it was her holding her hand. He's like, I know you have a tendency to let people die.
Yeah.
Freaking, I don't know. Let us know in the comments what you guys think about Tom Bombadil after the introduction in episode 4. Do you think they're doing right by adding him to the story, or is it just adding to the pile? Does he at all salvage this horrible show for you? Like, did seeing him make you happy when everything before has made you upset? Or are you neutral about it? Does it make you upset? Let us know. Really,
do you like the show? Do you enjoy? If you enjoy the show, I'm I genuinely want to hear from those people too, because that's important. If you enjoy something, to let us know why.